Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on Summer Song. This first match is a little bit... I just wanted to sort of demonstrate this once more. It's been a while since I've actually gotten this matchup, High Elf versus Wood Elf, and so I wanted to once again see if I could bring the Shadow Warrior build, see if my opponent... Normally if I play Wood Elves, I often end up against High Elves, but nobody ever seems to bring this build. And I've been looking to see if sort of what Wood Elf players or other Wood Elf players are doing that could potentially be counter to this, but it is the Shadow Warrior build once again. For those of you who haven't seen it before, in my opinion, the best build against Wood Elves, by far, if you're playing as High Elves. In my experience, I've not lost a single match with this against the Wood Elves. I don't really know what the Wood Elves can do against this build while at the same time preparing for all other High Elf builds. Yeah, I think it's pretty powerful. So quickly running through things, for those of you who have not seen this before. Alariel here on her Eagle, nothing too fancy, well, actually kind of overkitted. She's got most of her stuff. She does have Star of Everlord, Arcade Conduit, Unforgotten Forging, Tempest, Earthblood, Frost Protection, Shieldstone of Isha, Boon of Isha, which I brought on accident, but honestly it's not a bad choice against the Wood Elves, who have a decent chunk of physical resist. And yeah, so lots of healing, some good sort of single target abilities, and more importantly, she's just a decent sort of survivable lord. She can fly away, she can escape enemies much more effectively than even Teclis, in my opinion. The front line, of course, the main contingent in this army is a horde of Shadow Warriors. If we quickly look, 5 normal Shadow Warriors, a single unit of the Grey. The simple reality is, I don't know if the Grey is worth it. Perhaps it might be better to downgrade them to normal Shadow Warriors, bump these Silver Helms up to Dragon Princes. But, you know, we're trying things out. So, a whole bunch of Shadow Warriors, vanguarded forward, deployed in this very spread out formation. You never want to clump your archers. Normally, you don't want to clump your skirmishers either. They're vanguarded here. They've got their auto fire turned off because I do not want them prematurely engaging. Say if my opponent had some Eternal Guard vanguarded here, or anything like that, I didn't want them wasting ammo there. Finally, we do have a unit of Silver Helms, 2 Dragon Princes, one of which is the Fireborn, and so that's a heavy cavalry contingent to protect all of these archers. Shadow Warriors can basically annihilate all the unshielded Elven infantry. With this many, you can outshoot the Wood Elf infantry, and if you have to fight Eternal Guard, they can actually basically outfight Eternal Guard in a straight up fight. They're just very solid in melee. So it's definitely kind of a pretty powerful build. Now, my opponent here, definitely not a terrible composition. A bit interesting because it does lack much in the way of shields. My opponent went very wide. So he's got a bunch of Deep Scouts. He's got some Wild Riders over here. Eternal Guard going very wide. I think 5 units of Eternal Guard in total. A Spellsinger of Shadows with Pit of Shades, Enfeebling Foe, Melkot's Miasma, and Withering. Glady on a Dragon with Prey of Anathrema. And then more Wild Riders and Sisters of the Thorn over on this flank. So pretty solid composition. Now you can see immediately we are going to start teeing off on the Wild Riders. This is sort of the main threat. Secondary threat being the Deepwood Scouts. Those are obviously the priority targets, and we are immediately whittling them down. You can see the Wild Riders trying to push in, but of course we are going to tolerate none of it. My Dragon Princes have already started pulling forward right away. They're going to charge into these Wild Riders and dumpster them over here. The Fireborn doing the same thing, pushing in to shut down these Wild Riders. Of course, they're the unshielded variant, so they are going to be in for a very bad time. These Wild Riders don't even get their charge off, and they're completely getting smushed. Unfortunately, over here, my opponent does get a very nice Prey of Anathrema, so unfortunate. He does then swing the Wild Riders over to the flank. Over here, definitely a little bit of a sacrificial charge, a bit of light brigade action here. These Silver Helms charging in. They have no chance. They're barely going to make contact with this line, honestly. They're getting whittled down. Honestly, I think Silver Helms actually lose to Wild Riders in 1v1. I could be wrong, but they get hit by Curse of Honor, they get debuffed, but they are wasting my opponent's time. This is 5 units tied, or 6 units tied down to a single model of Silver Helms. While on this flank, it is an absolute slaughterhouse. You can see the Wild Riders here trying to desperately engage, getting shot down hard. My opponent doing a breath attack on the Dragon Princes, but in turn, all the Sergeant Fire coming in the Glade Lord, and even with the 45% missile resist, even with the 50 armor, the Glade Lord does not stand a chance. We do hit him with an overcast Tempest, which is going to do immense damage, and of course the archers are going to get a huge amount of damage in as well, and the Glade Lord is really not liking that. Just absolute focus fire, absolute madness, just annihilating his face, and really some rough stuff. And my opponent doesn't have heals. I noticed that relatively early into the game that he only brought a Spellsinger of Shadows, and so it means that all damage is permanent. Over here, quite a bit of fire, some of the missile pressure going into Deepwood Scouts, but I shortly then after focus everything on the Glade Lord, wanting to either kill him or shatter him. And you can see we succeed in doing that, so definitely kind of emulating the Weight Watcher shenanigans. But my opponent here desperately, once again, tried to shut down these Shadow Warriors, but we still have a very healthy unit of Fireborn. We've got a decent unit of Dragon Princes, and my opponent is running out of troops. His Eternal Guard, which is deployed very far in the back to shelter them from my missiles, isn't in the fight. They haven't even moved, really. The Fireborn here committing into the Sisters of Thorn, committing into the Wild Riders. My opponent casting Shield of Thorns, but really it's not going to happen. It's just not going to work out. And, despite Enfeebling Foe, despite the debuffs, so much arrow fire coming in. Now Alariel's diving in, which is providing magic for all these guys. Magic damage means Sisters of Thorn lose their main source of survivability and get dumpstered. And with that, it's basically just game over for the Wood Elves. Like, there are still, my opponent still does have troops here, but we are going to fast forward through this because at this point it's simply GG. This is a build that is amazingly good against Wood Elves. Wood Elves theoretically, of course, could counter with it, so it's just a few Way Watchers and a whole bunch of Wild Riders. The problem is that's not a build you're likely to see from the Wood Elves. It's not a build that really makes too much sense against the vast majority of high elf builds, which see a lot of cavalry used, and Wild Riders fall apart. Honestly, even if you brought a lot of Wild Riders, they struggle against even Silverhelms, and they really can't do much. Just Dragon Princes and Fireborn, it's a very one-sided engagement there. Meantime, Shadow Warriors, I could have overwhelmed these Deepwood Scouts. There's just so much shooting on the table. I could have overwhelmed the Wild Rider. I could even overwhelm the Glade Lord with so much shooting. It's very potent. Definitely one thing I would consider, like I said at the beginning of the video, is dropping the Grey for normal Shadow Warriors, getting an extra unit of Dragon Princes in there. But, we're trying stuff out. I don't know. I would like to hear opinions mostly on this build, and we'll be jumping over to what, in my opinion, is a better replay. But I kind of want to hear opinions. What is there a build that you guys think that could still be flexible against other high elf builds that could sort of reliably or even somewhat reliably beat this? I haven't really seen any builds. I've seen a lot of Wood Elf players as the high elves. In this situation, I actually picked high elves first, so it wasn't even a counter pick. I see a lot of Wood Elf players try to go toe to toe, and they bring a whole variety of builds. I've seen this. This is the first time I've seen a build like this one. I've seen other builds with more shields. I've seen builds with more shooting and kiting, and none of it really works. I don't. And against this sort of madness. So I would like to hear your guys' thoughts. I would like to hear some of your opinions, and yeah, be sure to mention down in the comments what you guys think. But regardless, we are going to go to another replay, which I think is honestly better than this one, and honestly something a little bit more worthwhile. I just wanted to sort of discuss this one a little bit. The second one is against another high elf game, but this time around against the Lizardmen. So against my opponent here, X-Top. And as you can see, pretty interesting build here from the Lizardmen. But I've decided to go with a very elite build. Lately I've been going for more and more elite builds when I play, sort of ditching the more wider builds or those sorts of competitions, and just trying to go with sort of the top of the line troops. And so here with this composition, what I decided to do is counter the Lizards their own game. Rather than trying to play the game with Phoenix Guard or Hordes of Dragon Princes, forget that. I simply brought 2 Star Dragons, one of which is the Prince here. He does have the Blade of Belkor Hadris, he does have Stand Your Ground, Deadly Onslaught, Foe Seeker, so the whole kit, the whole shebang, and he's alongside a 2nd Star Dragon. A front line, which is tiny, 3 Swordmasters of Hoeth. That's it. This composition has 273 troops in total. Which is nothing to brag about, nothing to write home about, really. But Swordmasters are an amazingly powerful unit against the Lizardmen. They do a lot of damage to infantry. They've got pretty decent bonus versus infantry of 14, I think. I'll quickly gloss over it. Quickly gloss over it. It's bonus versus infantry of 14, so they do a lot of damage, and they can melt any Lizardmen infantry. So with a fairly cheap front line, honestly, this is only about this is less than 4,000 gold. I was hoping to be able to take on any front line the Lizards brought. I also did bring the Fireborn as a backup anti-large option, and of course a Mage of Life, because you really need Earthblood and Regrowth. And I actually brought both Starwood Staff and the Book of Hoeth to get extra Winds of Magic. My opponent, bit of an interesting build, but honestly in some ways pretty conventional. There are no Bastiladons, which is a little surprising, but Chameleon Skinks here, immediately poking away at my troops, poking away at my Lord shortly thereafter. Front line of Star Warriors backed by Croxigors for that anti-infantry armor piercing, and of course these guys have recently gone above with missile resistance, which makes them a lot better against archers. So spears on the periphery, nothing too fancy there, but providing it's a little bit of anti-large. And then here in the heart of things, 2 Star Scarvets on dinos as well as Crockguard. I'm not entirely sure if Crockguard is mounted on a horned one. He is. The horned one has, oh my goodness, the horned ones have such amazing models. I absolutely adore the horned one models. They look amazing. The 2 Star Scarvets on the Raptors are pretty cool too, but nowhere near as cool as Crockguard. Horned one. Regardless, we do start melting down these Sarge warriors. You can see I'm trying to posture them. We have taken quite a bit of damage, losing about 1,000 HP apiece on the dragons to this concentrated Sking Fire. But I'm figuring if my opponent keeps wasting his ammo like this, I will be able to heal up eventually, so it's not going to be the end of the world. Immediately we do dive in, and we are shortly going to focus our fire on Kroq-Gar. You can see my opponent's charges here being interrupted by the charge of the Star Dragons. Here, where the charges were not interrupted, you can actually see how much damage the Kroq-Gors are doing against these poor Swordmasters of Hoeth. Granted, no models have been lost yet, but with between the poison damage, the Kroq-Gors laying the smackdown on these guys, the whooping, the Sarge Warriors shielding them, things are looking pretty bad. So, rather than sort of letting these guys just be a sacrificial piece, we do hit them with an Overcast Regrowth, which will basically stabilize them, and countercharge with the Fireborn. The Fireborn are going to leave a bloody, just to make a bloody mess out of these Kroq-Gors. They're such a good unit against them. And my opponent here made a big sacrifice, bringing just Kroq-Gar and the 2 Sarge vets. Means that he doesn't have magic, he doesn't have those sorts of support tools to keep his troops alive. And you can see the Swordmasters here just paying huge dividends here, all the way up to 14 kills over here, up to 26 against those Sarge Warriors, doing an amazing job. And the Prince here, with all of his buffs, the Star Dragon, you can look at him, almost 800 weapon strength, just tearing through Kroq-Gar, who's already down by about half health, and of course he doesn't have the tools to stay alive. He does cast Sacred Spawning, but you can see losing HP at a prodigious rate. He's in a terrible position here. And I do cast an Earthblood here, Overcast, just to keep this segment of the fight going while slaughtering poor Crocky Boy. And Croc's really not liking this. He's down to 1,000 HP. He does cast Cold-Blooded, but that is a huge mistake. You don't want to cast Cold-Blooded ever in the middle of a fight. The debuff means that against anything except, say, zombies, you're going to die, and he actually goes down. You can see poor Kroq-Gar there just falling off this amazing-looking Horned one, and it simply runs off. This is worth looking at. Just look at this amazing model. I absolutely love the Horned ones, but sorry for the distraction there, but they're so amazing. Regardless, over here, Prince and Star Dragon going in against the Sarge Garvets. My opponent's main anti-large is wrapped up in these 2 units, so that was something I wanted to wipe, but regardless, you can see the Swordmasters of Hoeth over here holding their own against these Sarge Warriors. They're slaughtering these guys. They've been doing okay against the Spears, getting a little bit of backing from some casters. Swordmasters over here, only up to 26 kills, but, you know, they've massacred these Sarge Warriors. These guys up to 93 kills. And the Fireborn also up to 43, so 44 there. Doing okay. Not too many kills, honestly, but honestly, my opponent's build wasn't that big to begin with. It was about 500 troops, so really there wasn't that much killing to do from either side. But we also do see the Lore of Life magic getting thrown in here. At this point, my opponent's army is simply going to shatter. So a second fairly short match that I did think was better than the last one. At least it reached the end game conclusion. Now, I actually think this is a decent composition against Lizardmen. There might be something I'm missing here. You are obviously sacrificing your shooting entirely, which is a little bit of a problem, perhaps. If there was something that I'd reconsider here, perhaps, especially if I was, say, doing if I was supposed to be doing a tourney with this, with, for example, more tougher model count rules. A lot of tourneys, say, require 300 models and stuff like that, which this does not meet. If you're looking for sort of a more competitive version of this build, or that might be perhaps a little more well-rounded, I would consider dropping perhaps the Fireborn in favor of or perhaps dropping some items and abilities on the Prince, and maybe bring normal Dragon Princes and then bring some Archers to counter Chameleon Skinks a little more reliably. I basically ignore the Chameleon Skinks this game, which can in some cases not be a good idea, especially if your opponent goes very kite heavy. This build would probably struggle, but versus the vast majority of Lizardman builds, the more balanced out ones, this build does really well. Swordmasters are a very strong pick against the vast majority of Lizardmen infantry. You have to be very wary of Wind Blast and spells like that. And of course, you can't allow big monsters to beat the snot out of your Swordmasters, but versus the vast majority of dinos, Swordmasters will definitely earn their keep. They're a very solid unit. Star Dragon and the Prince, of course, doing an amazing job dumpstering Kroq-Gar and his 2 lackeys over there, who aren't necessarily pushovers in melee. They're all 3 of them are dedicated anti-large specialists with armor piercing, but just really there's nothing they can do against a Star Dragon, especially without proper magical support or tools like that. A critique of my opponent's build, really, if I had one, would be the fact that he didn't bring any casters. I personally think that bring a big mount like Grimlock for Kroq-Gar is a good idea, and I definitely think that you should bring a caster as dinos. Curse of the Midnight Wind there could have been a big game changer for my opponent. It could have definitely helped a lot. Having Wind Blast could have been a huge boon against the Swordmaster of Hoeth. So definitely something to keep in mind, and I definitely don't think this is necessarily the most optimized build. I would consider, say, dropping the Fireborn and getting some archers in there, stuff like that. But nonetheless, a lot of fun. I do think this is workable. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video, this whole video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe below if you've not already. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions about the game, if you have any remarks on either this comp or more on the first one, I still haven't seen really counter to. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. Be sure to post. Be sure, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.